Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Midweek Takeaway. Today we're joined by Colin Bird, Executive Chairman of Bezant Resources. Welcome back, Colin. How's life treating you at the moment?
Oh, well, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. I guess we're all having a little battle one way or another. We're sharing some and we've got our own as well in various walks of our lives. So interesting times, but carrying on and heads down, and the companies seem to be shaping.
Very good, very good. It is difficult times, isn't it? At the moment, the markets have taken a real pounding, and as you know, in the UK, we're heading into recession predicted, and we've obviously got the interest rates going up. So I think everyone's just battening down the hatches, really ready to see what's going on. So hopefully, as Kev said yesterday, it's the markets are a forward-looking vehicle, and hopefully that they'll be pricing in as coming out the other end of that recession. So we'll see how things go. But anyway, let's talk about the recent RNS. We saw the Hope and Gorob project drilling update. Do you want to talk us through these? What I consider to be from that information exceptional results? Decent grades of copper and gold.
Yeah, isn't that the case? I've referred to in previous podcasts the fact that reading the history, and it made sense. COVID-19 and the rest of it restricting any visits to the country, one had to rely on what one read. A visit, a visit just changed my entire perception. There one sat in the desert, and it was as flat as a pancake. And one looks across the desert from sitting on top of Hope to Gorob, and there it is, 17 kilometers. I can even see little crops. I can see trenches. I can see activity. I can see trial shafts. I thought, this, and it's happened so many times, Phil, in my career. This is the product of lots of work. Boy, there's been some work. But has anybody ever put it together? No, they haven't. And it's not even funny, but there was the most expensive borehole I've ever seen in my life. One mining company put a shaft down 146 meters, 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters wide. That's some borehole to collect a sample before they actually understood the ore body. But that's good because the met test results came out at an over 90% recovery. But the prognosis that there's a body at Gorob and there's a body at Hope is kind of dreamland. It really is dreamland. It's true, there is a body. But what I could not get, well, I could and I couldn't, and but I can't understand why there wasn't at least some attempt to understand. But in those days, the last real campaign I think in the 70s, if you got oxides, you couldn't handle them anyway alongside sulfides. And so you didn't bother. You really didn't bother that because that was overburden. So some genius decided that the most shallow hole should be about 150 meters deep. Never even questioned it if there was anything above. Well, of course, there I stood. I looked at shafts. I looked at things that, sort of 250 meter long trench. It wasn't an exploration trench. It was taller than me. That's not saying an awful lot, by the way. I'm quite small, but nonetheless, you don't drill exploration. You don't make exploration trenches that deep, that consistent. And I saw little concrete pads. They'd obviously been treating the material, and there were piles. There was piles of malachite, which suggested they didn't want copper. They'd been handpicking and sorting out gold. And I thought, there's just more. I'm very happy with what I've got. It open and Gorob, but there must be more to it. So let's drill. Let's pick up a few places. And, I have to say I wouldn't go so far as to say it was random, but it was let's test Gorob, let's test Badone, let's test Hope, and let's see what we get. And lo and behold, we came out with these results. This is the first crowd. And as you can see, you've got results like 14 meters at 2.4 copper, 0.36 gold. You've got 3.81 meters at 4% copper, 2.79 gold. We've got a continuous run of 29.7 meters in one particular case at 29.7 meters at one particular place. And, all the way along, you've got copper and gold together. This is quite something, you know. I mean, with the results I'm showing you there, you know, so close to surface, by the way. These results are very close to surface. Some of them 8 meters, 11 meters deep. I mean, you are very, very close to surface. We've also checked the orientation, and it looks like this, apart from these, shall I say, co-joined gold copper gold values, whichever way you want it. There seems to be a defined gold trend as well, which we're trying to get our heads around. But mentally, practically, Open Gorob has completely changed its face for me. Yeah. I'm now looking at a big system. You know, the old boys, they talked about a syncline. And I know that previous chairman of the group, that they had aspiration to find another Zambian copper belt. As soon as they talk syncline, that means the thing bends. That means it doesn't go down 1,500 meters. So, you know, he pulled up stumps. Yeah. I don't even think it's that, you know. But if it was a syncline, we'd be happy bunnies anyway.
I mean, but looking at the York resource for the three combined areas, and it's Hope, Gorob, and the anomaly, as it's referred to, that we're talking about indicated and inferred of up to 10.2 million tons. I mean, are you confident that this is there, Colin?
Oh, crack it. There's been so many boreholes, so many studies of that you could put your pension on it. That's not what I'm talking about. Quite frankly, we went there with our small, you know, I've gone on, you know, on your podcast many times have I talked to just today of the small miner. Oh no, Open Gorob are not in that league. They're in an entirely different league. This is a big subject. You know, as I said, you stand on top of Oak there, and you can actually imagine a boat, a boat in the desert, but just showing the top of the boat. You can see the sides. Then when you look at the old shaft, you can see the actual lines of the ore body. You can see little crops. I mean, they're good to see because you're in an elevated position at Oak. For me to suggest to you the old 17 meters is live would be misrepresentation, and it's certainly an ambition, but it's let's keep it at dream level at the moment. But the possibility of building up a very large tonnage, and remember, you know, those results between naught, we haven't even gone down to 150 yet. So we'll improve ore resource by a stack just with these results what's come in. And there's a lot more to come at Vidome, from Vidome, from Gorob. And my view is that this ore body is going to end up much, much, much bigger than it appears to be now. But when did you leave last year?
So Colin, this is on a volcanic fault line then that the gold and the copper has come up through.
Oh yeah, well, you know, all these systems are basically where you get the fluids coming up. Sometimes they separate out according to periodic table. Other times they remain co-joined. But as I said, this time round they're joined up. The gold reports the chalcopyrite, the copper. But in this day and age, copper gold concentrates are readily accepted. More than that, as I said, I honestly believe you're looking at two systems as well, and a separate gold system. Now, how that will present itself, structurally bound, VMS, I do not know. But all I can say with absolute positive certainty is Open Gorob is something entirely different to what the old timers understood. There is tremendous potential to find, shall I say, a significant mine.
Just explain to those who don't know what assets are actually in Bezant Resources, because I mean, I'm asking the question, I suppose, openly. You have a current market cap of £5 million. Would you sell the current asset we've talked about there for £5 million now?
Good Lord, no. I mean, hopefully I've just articulated that in my opinion, there sits a major ore body. You talked earlier about markets looking forward. Let's go on fast forward. Let's run the movie on fast forward. The need for these sort of ore bodies that we've got in Open Gorob, there'll be, the majors will be all over this sort of body if it achieves the sort of levels that I think it will. And then, of course, let's put in country factor. And Namibia is a good, sound, solid country, made discoveries in oil and gas. It's got a solid economy and it's well run. So, got that going for it as well.
So what else has Bezant got to offer other than this world-class
Well, of
asset
course,
that you talked about?
we've got the manganese. We're going into the manganese in Botswana, battery grade manganese, not just your run-of-mill manganese. And we've got the drill machine ready to start there. And then, of course, Cyprus. We would be a little bit remiss to miss Cyprus there. We've got when the exploration is finished, we've got a 80% share in an emerging new mine, which I've always forecasted between 6,000 to 8,000 tons of copper production a year for not less than 6 years. So when you look at it, that is not a bad stable. And of course, absolutely. It's got the Mankayan 27.5 interest in the Mankayan project down in the Philippines. Days are a bit tough for IPOs in Australia, in Toronto, and all over the shop, but it'll go. And then we have the Argentina project as well, which is copper gold. And I think it was always gold, but most of the drilling was done for copper, the Red Bed series. When one looks at the portfolio, it's got tremendous value. When one looks at focus, which you have to in this day and age, open Bezant is the trailblazer, followed up by battery manganese, and then of course Cyprus is getting towards the second last hurdle, if you like.
Yeah, no, truly in Cyprus, we've visited it myself and Phil. It's not a ready to go mine, but it's not far off it.
It's got all of the right ways. Remember, you've got an open pit there, which needs deepening, not needs forming, needs deepening. You've got a cap the other side of the fault what bounded the pit. You've got a lovely that's not the right word. You've got a pretty impressive gold cap.
And then you've got 1.5. Yeah, and you've got 1.5 kilometer extension as well, all the way to
and anything can happen there. And again, it's back to open Gorob. It's a similar type of situation. Some of that will be mineralized if you want to dream. All of it is mineralized. But you can certainly say with some certainty that there will be more mineralization and pods along that as well. So Bezant is a nicely balanced little ship, ready for better times, of course, as we all are, but getting on with its business.
Yeah, and also we've seen the copper and gold price recover a bit recently in the last few weeks. Having dived, and I remember you saying on the podcast we could see $7,000-8,000 copper, and I think we did. And effectively now it's starting to come back again. So
yeah. I mean, but don't read too much into what happened, Kevin. The Chinese, about the last thing they need is a bout of inflation. They've got their own internal problems. They're about the last ones who want to see the copper going forward. London metal inventory, LME inventory is going down. Copper price going up. What's the best way? To keep inflation in the country? Lock everybody up. Well, those days are finished. Those days are finished even in China. So it's not a bad idea to have a bit of COVID. So we can lock Shanghai down. You can lock Macau down. You can lock Beijing down. And the reality is, if people don't get out of bed and go to work, they don't use copper. They don't use rebar. They don't use concrete. They don't use chrome. They don't use ferrochrome. The stainless steel requirements go down. So it's my perception that if you can actually decrease activity during this very volatile period, you may do something about ohm volatility whilst you sort out the fiscal fundamentals. And like it or not, and this is a Colin Bird statement, and they'll probably get shot for it, but I think the Chinese handle their in terms of fiscal management are pretty good. They take the ardent steps. They haven't got 55 committees to report to. They haven't got the Sunday Times, the Daily Mail, and everybody, the Sun and everybody all over them. The boss makes the decisions, and they happen. So politicians aren't really politicians. They're CEOs trying to get the best result for their country. And my view is that they just couldn't face up to that copper. And that copper price, and didn't it work beautifully? Or you saw companies, the major companies, one company in particular who should know better, said we bought out a few copper projects which worked at 9,000, and now and dusted them off with a view to seeing whether we could open them, and we put them back in the drawer. What a reaction! Just what the Chinese needed. They didn't need people to start getting dominance in copper. They didn't need other people having dominance in copper. They wanted to get the copper assets at their pace, at their time, on their agenda. So yeah. I never took it seriously. In fact, I took it so seriously, and in a different way, I actually started reinvesting in copper personally. Because it had to be a managed situation.
Yeah, Colin, I understand at the end of May you were buying more shares in Bezant, so you obviously have a lot of confidence in what's happening going forward.
Yeah, I absolute confidence in all of what I'm doing, because when you put these things together, it's not by accident. You don't throw your projects together. There's a grand plan underneath, and if other people don't think it's value and I think it is, you will notice that I always invest in my companies. And Bezant is extremely good value. And you talked about stock markets looking forward. You talk your recessions, you can talk your inflations, but unless you believe in Armageddon, and then we're all buggered anyway. But unless you believe in Armageddon, I think to buy copper and gold and be pioneering in the copper gold sector as we are is no bad thing. I feel that all of the companies are in the right space. I was going to say the right time. There is no right time, and there's temporary there's short-term time pressures anyway. But all the companies are in the right space. And as I say, unless you believe in Armageddon, buy gold, buy copper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Colin Bird, Executive Chairman of Bezant Resources, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Gavin.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.